Triple Cross, how we doing? We're back at it now. Looks like it might be a solo show today. We'll see if we get some other hosts jumping on here shortly. But hey, before we get into all of it, we're going to open the show the way we normally do with a little opening video.
Lillard with 47 tonight. Working it down to 2-1. A deep three. Oh! What? Blazers win the series. A walk-off three for Damian Lillard.
Samuel, wide receiver screen. Good play. Big play. And in for the touchdown.
And Turner looks for the deep left field. Ranging back is Profar, and it's a 1-0 start for the Dodgers.
Second batter of the game, and the Dodgers take a 1-0 lead.
Triple Cross, I'm here today if no one else is. Casey's here to bring you the football news that you've been dying to hear. We cannot have a football episode this week without touching on, by far, the most important topic. That would be Damar Hamlin and the Monday night game. Unprecedented as far as I've seen viewing football. I know there's some other cases, similar sort of seriousness way back in the past, but this is unlike anything I've seen in my years of watching football. Definitely been a long time since there's anything near this severe going on. And there's a whole lot of topics around this, and I think that's kind of like in bad taste, a lot of it. I just want to make sure that anybody out there knows that from the Triple Cross podcast, we want to give our support, send thoughts and prayers to Damar and his family and the whole Bills community, everybody who's affected by this. It's truly, like I said, unprecedented. You don't really know how to feel other than it just makes you sick when you see something like that. I personally did not catch this incident live. I did see it shortly after I received a text. I was actually heading back from a wedding that weekend, and maybe I was just kind of getting my my regular weekday legs back under me. But I saw a text and had to check out what had happened. And I did not know what I was getting myself into. It appeared to be somewhat routine tackle. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to speculate on what this injury could be. But first and foremost, at the top of this show, I wanted to make sure that we touch on this because we just do not want to glance over this with no deeper thought involved. So to Damar, to his family, to everyone, our thoughts and prayers are with you. I do know a little bit that his charity has really popped off here. Last I saw, it was over 5 million when I think the goal was, below 1 million or around 1 million, something like that. I wish I knew more about that, but please go find that charity and donate. I will probably drop that link into the show description after this episode is over. And besides that, we're doing a playoff picture segment on this episode. That's obviously going to impact the playoff picture, those being two playoff teams. But, there is no real silver lining here. But both of those teams are heading to the playoffs either way. And I think at this point, anybody near that football field, or really anybody in the world, is just happy to know that those teams don't need to worry about that stuff right now. They're not in this like win it to get in kind of mode. Both teams were happy to exit that field. I can't imagine anybody wanted to play that game. I am not going to dwell on this topic because, like I said, I'm not a doctor, and those are the people who should really be talking about his status right now. What I am going to talk about on this episode are the NFL yearly awards. We are going to look at the MVP race. We are going to look at Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, and Coach of the Year. If you've ever seen an episode of our podcast before, you know that I am a Niners fan, and I am excited to talk these awards because there's quite a few Niners in contention for these awards. So obviously there's still another week to be played of football, but it's looking okay for my team to maybe get themselves a couple of award winners on the team, which I think is well-deserved. So we're going to make sure we touch a little bit on everybody today, not just the Niners. Feel free to drop comments into the show as we go, as this is the first solo show that we've done on this channel. Could use a little extra audience participation, but hey, if not, I'll try to keep the show rolling anyway. So first up, I'm going to share my screen here so you can see what I'm looking at because I had to share these visuals. MVP odds. So these are all really cool visuals, I think. These are betting lines on who will win MVP. I'm going to have this graph for each one of the awards we're looking at today. And this really tells the story here. The main thing you need to know, if you look at this furthest week here, January 3rd, this was updated yesterday, so very recent. Should be very accurate. Obviously, there's no football played since then. You can see that Mahomes is the favorite to win it now. But it's kind of cool to see the arc here, how he was not always. I mean, he's always been right there at the top, but it's been close. And it looks like he's really emerging from the pack here. The rest of the pack being Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts mostly. Justin Jefferson, though, got to give my guy some credit. JJ has been the one guy, the one non-quarterback position guy who is really, he's been killing it. You know, I mean, he's had some monster games. You can tell when those happened. Because you want to be further down on this graph. If you don't understand the betting world, that's okay. You just need to know that the further down you are, right here, this dot is Mahomes right now. As of yesterday, he's the minus 675 to win. So he is a pretty heavy favorite at this point with one game left to be played. The rest of that pack really tight. You know, I think as it gets this close, it really becomes clear on a lot of these awards, but I don't want to spoil it before we get there, but some of these awards are for sure still up for grabs, and it's very, very, very close. But like I said, so Justin Jefferson's not going to win this award in all likelihood, but you got to call out the non-QB guys too, because honestly, I don't love that the MVP is turned into just whoever the best quarterback is. So that's basically the summation of the MVP race at the moment. So it's looking likely that it'll be Mahomes. He's having a great year. You know, a couple of years ago, the Niners and the Chiefs played each other in the Super Bowl. I was a little bitter that we lost that Super Bowl. I'm honestly hoping for a Super Bowl rematch with them so that we can beat them this time around. But all credit does go to Mahomes here. He is deserving. He's got the stats to back it up. And team success does matter in the MVP discussion, as it does in all these awards, if you ask me. So great seasons by Josh Allen, of course. I think he's one of the best. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the game, one of the most talented. But Joe Burrow, you know, another young quarterback who's had some great success already, but he's also having a very, very good year. Jalen Hurts really emerged onto the scene this year. This is the first year of huge significance for him. And it's amazing that he is in the MVP talk. So well done just to be in this conversation at all. It looks like I do have one of my Triple Cross co-hosts jumping in with me. This will not remain a solo show. I don't know what his availability will be, but I'm going to give myself a little drum roll. We have none other than Triple Cross John. Hey, buddy. How you doing?
What's up? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay.
All right, nice. Good. I wasn't sure. I don't have my
set up all by yourself, huh?
Yeah, yep, all by myself. I learned how earphones or AirPods worked.
Attaboy. Proud of you.
It was a tough one.
I don't know how long you've been able to listen, John, but we're talking a little awards this episode. Only started with the MVP odds so far. Did you have anything to add? Did you hear what I was talking about? Do you have any questions about this graph before we move forward?
No, I mean, honestly, I kind of, like you were saying, I feel like it's kind of become this like let's pick a quarterback thing, you know what I mean? So I kind of dig the Justin Jefferson, you know, take. I mean, obviously I'm a Vikings fan, so
yeah, I thought you might like that, honestly.
But he is on pace for like a really incredible year. Like, I mean, and he's only a couple weeks, really two regular season games, right, away from potentially leading the league in receiving yards. So,
yeah, I mean, it's a pretty incredible year.
He set the Vikings org record, which is insane. I mean, Randy Moss was in his prime a Viking.
Chris Carter. I mean, lots of great receivers there in that history. And Justin Jefferson is right there. What's scary to me is that he's still pretty young, man. I mean, he could continue to do this for a few more years for sure, at the least.
And
All
that's
right,
with
so
that's even splitting touches with like an incredible run threat there too,
that's true. That's true. And every year there's questions about his Cousins really like that guy. Well, it seems like he might be for Justin Jefferson, honestly. So
Yeah. He can
so
at least
credit
put
where
the ball
credit's
out there.
due there. All right, moving on to honestly probably the one I'm most excited to talk about because it's one of my favorite players who's leading this race. We have Defensive Player of the Year top contenders. These are the odds for them. And you can see a lot more movement on this graph than the one before. It was kind of like three guys kind of remaining similar, one guy kind of jumping around in there, and then one guy up the top you're just happy to see on the graph at all. This one honestly tells a longer story probably than we can get into with all the different movement here. But let's start forward or from now backwards, I guess. Right now, leading the race is Nick Bosa. We had this conversation on the podcast on one of our live episodes. That was last week, I guess, last Thursday when we streamed the Cowboys Titans game. Hey, if you happen to like to rewatch old football games, go ahead and pop that on your TV and pop our live stream on your cellular device or your laptop. Watch along with it. We had a pretty good time. We ate some hot wings based off some bets we made during the game.
I mean, people watch ESPN Classics, so
That's a good point.
I don't know if I would call that a classic game, though.
I think our stream was a classic, though.
Right, that was a classic. But the game itself, maybe just watch the stream, honestly.
Yeah. I won't take any longer, shamelessly plugging a past episode of a live stream. But we did talk about this a bit on that episode, and I kind of told you who I thought was leading the race a little bit. We mentioned 3 out of these 5 guys. It's really become a 2-guy race. You can see here, as of last week, Bosa and Micah Parsons were essentially even here. They become 1 dot on this graph. When I hover, kind of gets covered up, so I don't want to block the view of anybody who's trying to see here. We're looking at sportsbettingdime.com, by the way, if you are curious to look this up on your own. You can see earlier on in the year, kind of back here in November, even earlier, anything could happen at that point. We had different guys in the race. We had Myles Garrett in here as recent as November. Those guys have kind of fallen off. You want to be down on this chart, like I said, and these guys are just shooting upward. But really, I think it's because the other guys relatively are proving themselves as standouts. And then even this last week, Nick Bosa, I think for the first time in over a month, he did not register a sack, but he did essentially force the pressure that caused he literally pushed the left tackle into the quarterback, causing the interception that sealed the last game for the Niners, which, I mean, that's as big an impact play as you're going to get. So I think that's what makes him stand out here. Micah Parsons, obviously, don't want to not give him his due. He's an electric linebacker for the Dallas Cowboys. We saw him make quite a few good plays on that stream that we were referencing earlier. John, how do you feel about any of these guys? Nick Parsons, Mike Bosa, Chris Jones, Max Crosby, Myles Garrett. Anybody else stand out to you here that you really want to mention?
I would be interested in if we pulled out the top 10. I don't know if that loads instantly or not or whatever. But just if there's anyone who kind of deserves an honorable mention for hey, they had a good year for them. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I do think it's it's Bosa or Parsons, honestly.
Yeah, I forgot to mention I did have something set up for this, John. I'm looking at a show guideline so that I keep myself on track. I didn't know if I'd have anybody with me, so go ahead and take a look at that. That might be able to give you some context of how I expected this show to go.
Yeah, the D boy. Okay.
The D boy.
The boy.
What was that?
DPOY.
Oh, D boy. Sorry, I thought you called me like a D boy. I'm like, I don't know what that means, but I think take that as a sign of disrespect.
No, it's like a newfangled insult. All the kids are saying it. I can't believe you haven't heard it, honestly.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if I hadn't heard it if it was real. So, okay, that's DPOY.
Yeah, no, I don't really see anyone else who I would call out, right? Jack Marius Tactherius, but I don't know.
We did mention Max Crosby, I think, with Micah Parsons and Nick Bosa on that stream that we talked about. And I even mentioned it on there. And this chart kind of brings what I said to life, because that was obviously only here where they had Max Crosby way up here already. I guess my take on it then, and I'll stand by it, is that when a team kind of has nothing else to root for, when you're kind of like not looking like you're making the playoffs, when your franchise quarterback is getting benched for a younger guy. When your franchise, I'm not going to say they're in shambles, but they're definitely in a state of flux, state of transition. When you have nothing else to get excited about, you try to get excited about your best players and what could possibly happen for them. And Max Crosby is a bright spot on that team. So credit where credit's due. And Myles Garrett. Chris Jones, I didn't mention him much. He is a defensive lineman on the Chiefs. Again, another sore spot. He made some great plays against my guys in the Super Bowl. So, great job, man. But also take it easy if we end up playing you in the Super Bowl, please. All right, I'll get this other one loaded up here. Next up, honestly, another one I'm very excited about. A guy very near and dear to my heart. Probably the coolest looking graph, too, if I had to pick one out. I mean, even if I weren't biased already, this is pretty cool. And I want to get your take on this one as well, John. We have Offensive Rookie of the Year. Now, this looks very different than the other graphs for one reason. We have a guy who is right in the thick of it. Looks like it's really close, really, all overall. But there's 3 guys kind of leading the pack, 2 guys kind of falling off. But one of the guys in that front pack, nobody even had him on the radar until December 6th. And even then, kind of just comes in. But he has actually made progress towards being the front runner every week, which you cannot say about anybody else on this graph. They all kind of go up and down. That man is Brock Purdy, the starting now quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. This guy just kind of continues to prove it every week. And, if he continues to go down, he's going to take the lead in this, I think. I mean, unless somebody else does something incredible. It's really a 3-man race between Ken Walker, Garrett Wilson, Brock Purdy. I'll highlight those guys real quick. Purdy, like I said, he's in 3rd place right now, according to this site. He's the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. He's actually the only quarterback in those top 3. So he's getting a little bit of that QB positional love. Garrett Wilson in 2nd place. He's had a rough go of it, man. He is a Jet, which we've talked about the Jets quite a bit this season on this show. We know they have a bit of a quarterback carousel there. They've had 3 starting quarterbacks this year. I mean, I can't imagine a rookie having a harder time to an award than having to work with 3 different guys, especially when none of them are
great.
I don't know. I don't want to speak lightly about any of these guys, but I mean, you got I'll just name them: Joe Flacco, Zach Wilson, and Mike White.
Well,
say what you will about it.
Let's be clear. We know Joe Flacco isn't great. Like, I think we can pretty confidently plant our flag in the fact that Joe Flacco is like not great. He's not like a great QB. He's passable, right? He can kind of take care of the ball,
He's also past his prime. I will say this for Wilson too. Another thing, just to his credit, because like I said, it's a raw deal. I mean, most years, if he had just like one, even just mediocre quarterback all the way through the season, they're developing chemistry. He probably runs away with this, in my opinion. The only other receiver on this list is Christian Watson, which is this guy doing the other kind of J action here, reverse J, I guess, action.
Tell me about that. What happened there?
Yeah, so he had this insane run. I mean, he was a pretty high profile guy coming out of the draft. Went to what everybody assumed would be a really great team this year in the Packers, with what everybody assumed would be a really great quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. There's been a lot of talk around that. I'm not going to get into whether or not they're a great team or Rodgers is still a great quarterback, but he's definitely been looking like a great quarterback lately, and they have been looking like a great team. They're on a tear, and it kind of sparked during this breakout by Watson. They kind of were just missing a weapon for Rodgers to go to, and Watson became that guy. He went on some crazy run. I don't want to get it wrong. I don't have all the stats pulled up, but I want to say over the course of like 1 month, he scored something like 6 touchdowns. I mean, and I don't think he had much of anything going on before that. You can see he really fell out of favor early, and then right back into favor. So he's in 5th place now. He's probably not going to be able to pull it off, but it just goes to show you, like, he's had a first ballot guaranteed Hall of Fame quarterback with him all season. And he's one of the fastest, like, largest receivers to come out of the draft. Insane prototypical receiver, a great athlete. Have nothing bad to say about him. He deserves to be where he is in this race, but it just highlights Garrett Wilson to me. Like, man, like, to have Aaron Rodgers for a whole season and kind of fall out and barely get back into the race. I mean, Garrett Wilson stuck in there with the QB carousel going on. So again, props to both those guys, but Garrett Wilson really had the deck stacked against him. And then the two Kennys here to wrap it up. We got Kenny Pickett, the other quarterback on this list. Really does show you the contrast there with Purdy, how he just kind of slingshot. What's the past tense of slingshot? Slingshotted?
Slingshot. Slangshotted.
He got slung right on past Kenny Pickett, who that area of the country was very excited about to have that guy on their squad and be the future, be the starting quarterback. He didn't start the whole season, so similar to Purdy in that way, but he had a ton more games, ton more playing time. And to see my guy Purdy rocket right past Pickett, who's had definitely at least a good borderline. Let's leave it a good rookie season as a quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Good to see that guy on there. I'm glad this isn't just 5 quarterbacks. The last Ken to talk about is Kenneth Walker, another division rival, at least historically, to my team on the Seattle Seahawks. Kind of filled a void that they've really been needing over recent years, maybe even since the Marshawn Lynch days. Ken Walker coming in, Ken Walker the third, that is. Comes in, and he is now pretty securely that number 1 guy in the backfield. And he was supposed to be the guy, and like most rookies, kind of takes a while to come on, super intense. But he did eventually usurp that backfield. I know you're getting into the Game of Thrones universe lately, and usurp is kind of the
it was
the month. But
it was off of a injury. Was it Rashad Penny injury or? Yeah.
Which is something that he's struggled with his whole career. So, but Kenneth Walker the third, I don't know what he goes by, so I'll just use his whole name. I've heard he goes by
Kenneth
Ken,
Walker
really, but like the official name sometimes gets ahead of what the player wants, and it's just out of control. So
okay, all right. So Kenny 3, he was already sharing touches. So I'm gonna just take a non-Homer opinion here, because I know you have the Homer opinion that Brock Purdy. Let's see. Let's go. Hopefully he's the guy,
let's
right?
Go.
I'm gonna use what I feel is an intellectually consistent opinion for you, and this is the exact conversation we had about the MVP race in the NBA, and that is that is Joel Embiid should he really be that high when he missed 3 or 4 weeks? Should Zion Williamson really be that high when he missed 4 or 5 weeks? Now, obviously, it's not Brock Purdy's fault he missed all that time. But, I think extra points goes to the guy who's been there all season, especially a running back, especially when he was already getting touches, and then now he's got to take all the touches. And, on a team that basically everyone thought was just going to suck, and they, kind of don't, right? They're not bad. They're not great. They're not bad. They're not as bad as everyone thought they were going to be, for sure. So, yeah, I mean, give me Kenny 3 for this one.
Yeah, 1 more week still to play. I think, honestly,
when it's regular season, right? If Brock Purdy could go a long way in the offseason, that'd be very, very impressive. But this is a regular season award, correct?
Correct. Yeah, and that does matter. We want to make sure we're looking at the right criteria. I will say this about the point you made: a little different than an already established superstar. I mean, obviously,
right.
Maybe he struggled with injuries a little bit in Embiid, but like I said, all these rookies, except for maybe Wilson. They all have had a role that hasn't, whether or not they were in or out of the game, they've all had roles that have increased over the season. Excuse me. And Purdy himself, it's one of those things where he, again, not to just be a homer, but opportunity came knocking, and there's a bunch of rookies, a bunch of young guys who have had a shot at this point in the year. It's taken something truly just outlier, let's say. I'm not going to say great. I'm not going to say he's the next Joe Montana, but it's an outlier that a guy can even enter the race this late into the season without any playing time before that and come in. And I mean, he hasn't lost a game in his NFL career. Just weird things you can state like that to shatter Tom Brady's record against first-time starters, to break the undefeated streak there. Just a lot of weird little things. Being the QB3, not even being drafted to be the backup, little stuff like that. Things that have shocked everybody all the way. That said, I kind of agree with you as it sits. It's Ken Walker right now. I think this is the right order. And I think
I
it's
think
really,
Purdy, he deserves to be in the conversation, no doubt.
I think it's down to
But
those
I
three
think Ken
guys.
Walker, kind of deserves the award, honestly.
Like to your point, like Christian Watson, he's had opportunity the whole year, and he just
Mhm.
only like could really realize his true potential starting here at November 8th. So for that reason, I find it very hard for him to actually win the award. Same thing with Kenny
Right.
Pickett. He's had a lot of opportunity throughout the season. And I mean, I think they even went back to Trubisky for a while. So can a guy get benched and win the award? I mean, maybe he was banged up a little bit, but that's so like she said with the like, oh yeah, he nicked his ankle or something, so we're sitting him back down because
Rested.
actually we just aren't sure if he's ready yet. Like, there's a lot of that going on. I think it's a 3-man race at this point. I know we're running a little long on the offensive rookie talk here, guys. Sorry, but this one's very interesting. It's very close, in my opinion. It's still totally up for grabs, at least between those three guys. And it's interesting. It's three different positions, the three positions that you would expect being talked about. So they're all represented in a different way. And to whoever wins it, congrats. I think it's it's closer than these numbers make it seem, because let's take Purdy out of the equation. If Garrett Wilson goes off for 200 yards in 2 touchdowns in the next game, he should win it. I think,
That
if
would be
Ken Walker does
outlier.
that, yeah,
Yeah, that would
exactly.
be outlier performance even for Garrett Wilson, even on the streak that he's on. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
If Ken
he wins
Walker,
it then.
like, really I mean, if Ken Walker puts up a big game, I think nobody can pass him. But likewise,
Mhm.
if Garrett Wilson and Ken Walker fail to put up like 100 all-purpose yards or something, don't score any touchdowns or only score 1 touchdown maybe, and Brock Purdy, just keeps doing Brock Purdy things, and he puts up like, 250, 300 yards, and he throws for 3 touchdowns or something, I think he maybe pulls ahead here and steals the award. That's just my take on it.
Yeah,
It's kind of homerish, but I was trying to take the bias out of it. I think he really has a shot if he plays a great game.
he has the best. He's a quarterback, and two, a quarterback with weapons that can get him those numbers, even if he's not great. Like, I think he's good, right? I'm not saying he's not, but even if he weren't great, he has teammates who can get him really great numbers, right? Like,
And
he can
yep,
throw a pass in the flats to Christian McCaffrey, and he'll house it. Like,
yeah,
and that's touchdown
75 yards,
pass.
you never know.
Right. So yeah, and like Brock Purdy is poised to like, and also because he's a quarterback, he gets to piggyback on a win, right? Like a win, he kind of gets to take responsibility for. So he's probably like on the trajectory to pass them, but that's just my opinion. I think Ken Walker deserves the award just for what he's been all season.
I totally get where you're coming from. The last thing I'll say about it, then we're moving on, is that we do only count the regular season for these awards. But they don't vote on them immediately after the season.
Yeah.
So you kind of know that some stuff can leak in, maybe even if officially they're only supposed to look at certain things. And I will say that if the Niners win their game, which I think they're playing the Cardinals. We'll get to matchups in a minute, but they're playing the Cardinals. It's a game that they should win by all accounts, not the bias taker. That's what you would expect, or the
Yes.
odds-on
Yep.
favorite to win. They're trying to win. They're not. They care about this last game of the season. It matters to them. If they win, and Brock Purdy can be an undefeated guy, and the story I think builds, and I think that does lend him a little more favor as the kind of narrative marinates for a couple more weeks. Obviously he's got the momentum in the race. So as long
Yeah.
barring something negative happening to him, maybe even if all three of these guys put up a pretty average game and their trajectory just continues, I wouldn't be surprised. Again, the QB favoritism. I wouldn't be surprised if the
That's why.
NFL hands it to him.
That's what
Yeah.
I mean.
So
I think that if all of them have just average games, then he might win it.
it absolutely could happen. I wouldn't want to see it happen that way. I'd want to see whoever
I'm gonna
wins
break
that
it.
one. It being so tight, exactly. I'd like to see somebody really put their foot in the ground and just take off running with it.
Yeah,
No matter
and
who it is, honestly.
to your point, Niners Cardinals. It's not homerdom. They are a 9.5 point favorite. So
Yeah,
game they should win for sure.
definitely, definitely. All right, moving on now to the other side of that similar type of award. We have here defensive rookie of the year, and I got to be honest with you, I pay attention to a lot of football, probably the most out of anybody on our show. I'll just hand myself that title. Why not? And as I was looking at this, I didn't look at every graph and narrative. I just kind of, I was already looking at a couple of these. Like, hey, we should do a show around this. Just started pulling up each one that I wanted to make sure we included. And then when I looked at this, I just went straight here and was like, Ahmad Gardner. Like, what? Like I know everybody here. Like, who's Ahmad Gardner? Oh, he doesn't go by Ahmad. This is Sauce Gardner. I got lost in the sauce on that one. This guy also plays for the Jets. Super high draft capital. I would say at least a top 3 candidate at his position coming into the NFL draft. But I think the top 1, honestly, I think most people would say that. There's a couple other guys in the conversation. There's some straight up ballers here in this already. Like defense, I love. Honestly, I think I'm a little more defensive minded in general about sports. But this one is a runaway race, in my opinion. This guy has shown out. I don't have the stats in front of me, but if you've watched the Jets play at all, right? Like we've been talking about the Jets being in contention. Honestly, they were sitting in a playoff spot for most of the season. If you were saying the season ended today, I mean, it was only a week or maybe 2 weeks ago. I think it was last week that they actually got eliminated from the playoffs when most people expected them to go for most of the season because they were playing pretty good and it didn't matter who played quarterback. One of the reasons is because the defense was playing so good, and a shutdown corner can do that for a defense. This guy is one of those guys immediately in his rookie season. QBs don't want to throw the ball his way. So this one, let's see. Let's just make sure I don't get any of these guys wrong. Right now, off the top of my head, Roger McCreary is escaping me. I can't remember where he is. Let me look it up so that I can give him his flowers as well. But everybody else, I definitely know. Let's see, Roger McCreary, another cornerback. Oh, he's on the Titans. Okay, gotcha. So we were probably watching McCreary in that game that we were streaming as well, John. Which we actually, I mean, Kevin Byard was the hero in that game.
There were a lot of Titans not playing, so who knows if we were watching them.
That's true. But he was probably a guy who benefited from that, if I'm guessing. But like Kevin Byard was the hero of that game for Tennessee, at least, with 2 picks against a guy like Dak Prescott. And I think anybody with like any football IQ at all knows that the defensive secondary, really the whole defense, but like especially like positional groups like that, the defensive secondary like all plays together. Like having in addition,
one
like
pick is everyone's pick.
Exactly. Like just because the center field safety in Byard on those plays where he picked off Dak, just because he's the one who ends up the ball, it's a team win. Like that doesn't happen if everybody's not doing their job. So a lot of those times it's tough for a corner, especially to break out, because people look at one stat and that's picks. And it's going to be tough, especially as a rookie, to just show out and grab a bunch of picks. Like every once in a while we see a guy who can do it, like in Sauce Gardner. But you more often do see like the edge rusher guys like Aiden Hutchinson here on who's from the Lions, Kayvon Thibodeau, who's on the Giants. I mean, Thibodeau, I honestly expected to be right at the very top of this because he also like looks the part, like he looks electrifying. He's involved on all the big plays like during their games. And they're another team that hasn't really been killing it in recent like decades, you could say. Almost not since like the Eli era, unless I'm mistakenly like forgetting some great Giants teams since then
in recent 10 years.
Yeah, that team has turned around quite a bit, and again, it's a lot because that defense is playing its part, and the offense doesn't have to put up 40 points a game. A guy like Daniel Jones, all of a sudden you're like, hey, maybe he is an okay quarterback. A lot of people had question marks about that whole team, but just a couple pieces falling into the right spot, and a lot of times it's on defense, which a lot of people don't see as sexy as like the premier offensive positions, but a lot of times it can make all the difference. Then we have Woolen, another cornerback. I think he was the fastest guy in the draft, so I always love the fast guys. Get those guys in Madden. That's the cheat code, is always just more speed. There's the 2 cents for you. I think we've touched on everybody a little bit, but this one's a runaway. I think, barring something absolutely incredible. Congratulations, Sauce Gardner, more than likely on this one. So we have 2 more that we'll be talking about, unless you wanted to say anything else about those guys, John.
Nope. Next.
Okay. Next up. Very cool. Let's see here. It's funny. I shared my screen like 3 or 4 times already, and then I was like, wait, how do I do this again? Sometimes,
is
just
hard
like the
to remember
dual
things.
thinking, you're like thinking, talking, and clicking.
Thinking and talking at the same time is difficult. Yeah.
It can be tough. Okay, this one.
NFL
NFL
comeback
comeback
player of the year.
player. Yep, exactly. So again, another one with some crazy stuff. Honestly, I want to know why on this one guys just appear on the graph instead of like shooting down from the top. They just switched formats on us. I don't know why that is. I'm
Right.
still gonna assume that
Well, wait,
SBD
so was
knows what they're
Christian
talking about.
McCaffrey injured last year? Can you give me
So
context on why Christian McCaffrey
yeah,
is there literally week 1? Like,
yeah. So yes. Christian McCaffrey is a guy who's had injuries. I think last year he was he didn't play that many games. I can't remember how many he actually registered. I want to say only a handful. Honestly, I care more about games of Christian McCaffrey post the trade than pre the trade. Not a
yeah.
lot of
Yeah,
people in
you
the
weren't
league.
watching him with it when he was with the Panthers?
Yeah, he was obviously a premier player, but especially in a year where he gets injured, probably going to take a Panthers fan to know exactly what went down without doing special research, which I maybe should have done. But hey, we're doing 6 categories just in one segment of the show, so I'm going to cut myself some slack here. But this one was the other one I wanted to highlight as a very, very, very tight race. We have 3 guys merging into one dot exactly, basically, and
Yeah.
2 guys you would expect, Saquon and McCaffrey, being just hands down athletic wise, like football IQ wise, like game changing ability wise, they're 2 of the top 10 like big difference makers, maybe maybe
Right.
take quarterbacks
I
out first
find
too.
it weird that they're even in the comeback like category.
Yeah, and it's all injury based. So this is kind of
Okay.
I would say this category is kind of like there's some talk around like what is this even.
Right.
But hey,
Because Geno Smith, I think of as an incredible comeback story for this year.
exactly, he's an
But
incredible
Christian,
comeback
like
in the more
CMC and
traditional sense.
Saquon, I wouldn't have thought of them as like comeback players. I'm like, they were already here. Like they were here already.
And
They were.
again, I don't want to just
Nobody
like
thought they weren't good.
totally. And I
But
don't want to like hate on guys who aren't on my team or anything, but I think that's why Geno Smith is in the conversation. Is because it's more of what you think about when you think of a
yeah,
comeback story. Like his career looked over.
right.
That's not me saying. I think that's what most people would have said. He had a shot. He
Yeah,
was
he
a
said it
did he?
more or less. Yeah, like they wrote me off, right?
That's that's true. He did say that. He's a creative writing major or something, I think. Anyway, that was a weird joke. Let's move on past that one.
No,
But
he's
yeah,
not
most
because he didn't write back, so he's not
he
a
didn't.
creative. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
He's all about the talk. But Geno, if your take was Geno Smith deserves this more than the other guys, I would actually back that up. The difference is that's not really how
He's
the
not.
award has happened. Like
Yeah.
it's not how it's been going. And I get why people don't like the direction it's going. Same thing when you say like, why do quarterbacks always just win the MVP? Like, I agree with that take too, kind of. But
Yeah.
especially in a year where it benefits one of my guys, I'm like, we're not gonna just change it right now, right? Like
Is
we're looking
it
through the
well?
lens we've been using. So
Is this basically MVP for not quarterbacks? You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, we like never let non-quarterbacks into the MVP race. So this is the award that we let them have. Like, you know what I'm
this
saying?
more
Like,
or less, you still need something from the past, at least the past season, where you're battling back from, whether it's injuries or
yeah,
negative publicity. Like I would even go as far as to say next year, like
like Deshaun
Russell
Watson.
Wilson could qualify for this. Deshaun could have
Okay.
qualified for this year, maybe next year too. Like those kinds of things. Again, historically, I don't think that's really what the award was about, but it's what it's kind of become about. Like just anybody who has to fight a certain amount of adversity that isn't just football. I think that's the best way to put this award.
Okay.
And by that description, barring Nick Gates, who I'm gonna be honest with you, John, I don't know who Nick Gates is. I probably should.
Well, if
I
you
don't
don't know, what do you expect from me?
I don't know, but most people know Jared Goff at least, and I would say Jared Goff is a pretty good comeback story. Nowhere near. Let's just compare him to Geno, same position, sort of similar type of career arc, maybe not even really. Geno's been more impressive, so I think that's our little like litmus test here for like where the group is, and I think that it's shaken out that way. I think this is going to be completely narrative based. Don't think stats are going to come into it all that much,
Yeah.
other than those like those certain like cherry pick stats you can say were like, yeah, but he averaged like 7 yards per carry or something. If you talk about
CMC and Saquon Barkley are having incredible seasons, and they're incredible players. I would give this award. Like, I feel like Geno Smith deserves this award, honestly. I'm impressed with what he's been able to do with the season. Like, kind
I am
of saved
too.
a career, really.
And kind of saved a franchise in some people's eyes because,
Right.
I don't know if everybody was on board with this, but honestly, I thought that the Seahawks were
I
going to
thought they were
tank
just going to
this year.
tank. Yeah.
It seemed like it, but credit to them. They didn't. They patchworked something together and they made a guy like Geno Smith. It's kind of a joke, kind of said tongue in cheek, but like Geno Smith for MVP kind of thing. That was talks like early in the season, even. MVP's out of the question, but comeback player of the year is not. And this is similar to that offensive rookie of the year category where it's going to take a big game from one of these guys to emerge as the favorite, or the narratives will marinate and whoever has the best narrative is just going to win out, because it's not going to be, oh, but he had 10 more yards than the other guy. That's not going to matter, I don't think. It's going to take a big game here or a narrative. And with that lens, I think that you really tip your cap to McCaffrey in that way, because same thing with Brock Purdy. We have a couple comments here from 49er Empire. Bro, definitely seen you on Bleacher Report. What's up? Glad you got that and jumped in here, trying to create a little community for ourselves. Always want more Niners fans into the Triple Cross community as well. So glad to have you here. Feel free to weigh in on all of these, and you'll get your comment popped up on the screen here, as long as it's a slow chat day. And he thought Seattle was going to be dog water this year. I mean,
glad we're all on the same page.
Yeah, we all hope for that in the Niners fandom anyway. I'll say it. They've been a thorn on our side for the last, decade at least, like ever since Russell Wilson came to town, right? And we thought this was it, man. Russ is gone. They're just out of contention, and they are not. We're going to get to that section in just a minute here, but they're still in the hunt, believe it or not. So,
hey, Talking Balls podcast. I don't know if you're trying to use emojis, dude, but I don't think you can. I think you got to use the emoticon. But appreciate you being here. A little plug for your channel. Go check out their channel after this
for the
is
Talking Balls pod.
3 squares. Yep, that's their rating system that they just made up.
Thanks for coming again, and glad the Rams are trash. Super Bowl flukes. You said it, not me.
I wish Q was here.
But we'll leave it up there for a second, and it's cool. Anyway, all right, moving along to the next one here. We got to keep time here because honestly, I got a tournament to get to not too long here, so I'll pop this one off. But yeah, like I said, that one's going to come down to a narrative. As I say, they don't vote right after the season ends, so who's to say that a little postseason stuff doesn't leak in to their minds? And also, even if it's just stuff from the regular season, it definitely means a little bit more a couple weeks later. You kind of been thinking about, man, that is incredible if one guy like made history or something. So last one here I want to touch on. I mean, if we got some Niners fans in here, you're going to be happy about this one too, because we got another guy in contention here for 2022 NFL Coach of the Year award. Our guy is in second place if you're a Niners fan, but I'll go in order. Nick Sirianni, what he's done with the Eagles is nothing short of incredible. I'll do a victory lap real quick again. I called it early in the season that they were going to the playoffs. I thought they had too much talent. I thought it would work. I did not see them being as good as they've looked at times this season. Did not see them being in the 1 seed this late in the season. But I thought they'd be in the playoffs. And I think Nick Sirianni, I was going to say they'll do it, whether or not he's great. He's been great. He is a reason. He's the reason why they're not just on the cusp of playoffs and they're right at the top. The other guys here, just to let you know in case you weren't sure, Kyle Shanahan, right behind him, really. Again, going to come down to this last week here with the 49ers. And the last guy who's probably really in the race is Brian Daboll from the Giants. Again, turning around a franchise. So you kind of have two very similar stories and kind of turning around a franchise. Or say what you will about the Eagles. They were there not too long ago, kind of fell off. They've been turned around again since. And the Niners, different story altogether. Not a first-time head coach, not a year-one head coach. This guy, I mean, he's got a different narrative. That's the word of the day in these award things is narratives. John, do you have anything to say about those three in particular?
So this is what the NBA does too, and the thing I don't like about the Coach of the Year award is basically it's the same. It's synonymous with best year-over-year improvement of team award. That's like all it is, right? Like what team has improved the most year over year? Kyle Shanahan's the only one that like really breaks that mold here, right? Like Eagles, Giants, big turnarounds year over year. Dolphins, I think like that's definitely worth mentioning as well. Kyle Shanahan, yeah, like the Niners weren't as good last year, but like they've already been contenders for a few years now. So yeah, and I don't know how much he had to do with the CMC trade. I'm sure he was part of it, but I would almost say Niners deserve a front office of the year award for sure for pulling off that trade.
Yeah, John Lynch for general manager of the year. I would definitely second that.
Yeah.
I get the take on Shanahan. Like I said, different category than the other two guys, really. Talking Balls wants to say Dan Campbell, maybe.
Dan
I don't
Campbell?
personally think he belongs in the top tier here, but yeah, done a great job turning that around. I think they've just ultimately not had quite the amount of success you really need on the team level to do it. Like John said, it's kind of been synonymous with team success. If you have John's take, Dan Campbell's a much higher candidate on the list, probably. And I wouldn't be surprised to see a boost in Sean McDermott, Zach Taylor, the way they handled stuff on Monday night. A lot of people are giving them flowers right now. Ultimately, I don't know if that'll be enough to really like skyrocket either one of them to the top of this list. I think it's a 3-man race as well, and I think it's going to come down to last week of the season. Yeah. So, moving on to the next
Empire
one.
he doesn't want to play Green Bay in the first round.
Rather see the Niners play Seattle again because Aaron is hard to beat when he's hot. Yeah, but we're kind of the like Aaron extinguisher.
Yeah,
too.
I think it doesn't matter. I think the Niners are just a lot better than the Pack.
It's it's a tough world out
You're
there.
You're like, hey man, like don't just go jinxing us. I hear you. But
I'm not going to say anything negative about the team. I think the Packers story this year is incredible. But we have other stuff to talk about. We'll get to them as well on this. We got to shoot through this fast because I mismanaged the time a little bit. So we're gonna have to go through this faster than I wanted, but that's okay. So we're gonna hit this quick.
Let's go.
I have playoff scenarios on 2 other tabs here, so we'll talk about each one a little bit more, but just a really quick look. Chiefs, Bills, Bengals, Chargers, Ravens already have their playoff berths. In the hunt, you got Jags, Pats. If the season ended today, they'd be in. Teams on the bubble that can still get there, but they got an uphill battle maybe. The Dolphins, the Steelers, the Titans. That's the AFC picture. Boom. NFC picture. The Eagles still in the 1 spot. The Niners in the 2. Vikings 3. Bucks 4. Cowboys, Giants after them. 1 spot still available. If the season ended today, it'd be Seattle. And on the bubble still, a couple of teams that we've just talked about quite a bit. A lot of stuff going on in these teams right now, these 8-8 teams. This is where you find yourself when you're 500 at this point in the season. So the Lions and Packers have a shot at it as well. And here are going to be our playoff scenarios. Let's start in the AFC since we just did it. Okay, so for the Chiefs, if they win plus a Bills loss, or if the Bills lose 2 games, that'd be if the game is made up with the Bengals. We won't go into that super deep, but if that happens and the Bills lose that game and their other game, plus the Bengals lose, then the Chiefs are the 1 seed. So you can see some stuff needs to fall the right way, but I don't think the Bills are going to play 2 more. So if the Bills lose and the Chiefs win, the Chiefs are going to be the 1 seed. Bills, if they do get that second game and they win both, then they're going to find themselves in the 1 seed. So, I think everybody is kind of a part of, in spirit, a part of Bills Mafia right now. So honestly, I'd love to see them somehow find their way into that 1 seed, get that extra bye week so players can do what they need to do, get their mind off the game if they need to, but that would mean they have to play an extra game. So there's just a lot going on here. We'll run through this quick. John, feel free to just interrupt me outright because I'm just trying to run through this quick and get us to our picks at the end. Bengals, if the Bengals win 2 and the Chiefs lost, they will clinch. Well, this is written in. Oh, they'll clinch the 1 seed. So they still have a shot at the 1 seed. That's right. They're tied with the Bills right now because they also have 2 games that potentially could be played. It's a weird situation this year. Again, we can't really. They might make it. That'd be weird if they made it a tie, honestly, 49ers Empire. but who knows? You know, you never know what the NFL is going to do. Honestly, I'm not the guy who says the NFL handles stuff right normally. I actually think normally they make a cluster out of things. But so far, you know, the way we've heard stuff come out, it seems like the NFL has actually handled the situation pretty responsibly. So I don't want to drag them in this. I think whatever they decide to do may or may not be the right thing to do, but I don't think there is a right thing outright to do. So AFC South title, that's going to be the Jags, the Titans. If the Jags win or tie versus the Titans, they got it. But the Titans have to win and take the title from the Jags as it is now. So if they do, they'll get it. AFC North title, Bengals, they win tie versus the Bills, or they win versus the Ravens. Again, a lot going on there. The number 7 seed wild card, Patriots clinch with win at the Bills or Dolphins, or Dolphins loss versus Jets, and Steelers loss versus Browns, and Jags win versus Titans. So a 3-legger there to make that happen. So they really should just beat the Bills. But who's not pulling for the Bills right now? So sorry, Pats. Dolphins 8-8 right now. They can clinch with a win versus the Jets, and Patriots lost to the Bills. So a little 2-leg thing going on there. Steelers, they are 8-8 again, like the rest of these teams here, and they will clinch with a win versus the Browns, and Dolphins lost versus the Jets, and Patriots lost at the Bills. So another 3-legger there. I'm running through the AFC especially fast because there's so many weird situations. It's hard to kind of dive too far into these. You never know what's going to happen now. Jaguars 8-8. They'll clinch with a loss versus the Titans, and Dolphins loss and losses by Dolphins, Patriots, and Steelers. So another 4-legger on that one. John, do you have anything to say about the AFC before we move on here?
Yeah, I think in a sense I kind of like am cheering against the Steelers here since I like had that take that they wouldn't make it, and now that they might, I'm like, no. But yeah, like I don't know. I think maybe Patriots or not Patriots. I think Patriots outside looking in, Steelers outside looking in, maybe Titans outside looking in.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's a terrible guess. Okay, so this one, this should be a little okay. So this one's laid out a little bit differently. Maybe we'll have to skip picks this week, John. I don't know if I managed the time well enough. Got a little off my rocker on the solo.
Look, we'd skip them. We've skipped them a couple times, so it's all right with me.
It's happening. It's happening.
I think I have 1 picks at this point, so
I will say this: whether or not we get to 2 picks, I will at least show you how it ended up, because it might not be how you thought. We'll see. Okay, nice. So in the NFC, honestly, the division that I follow a little bit more, being a Niners fan, the division that usually gets talked about a little bit less like lovingly from a lot of the national media, I think. Here's where we're sitting. We got the Eagles here. Their next opponent is the Giants. This game is going to matter a lot. They can clinch the 1 seed. Well, they'll clinch so they'll clinch the NFC East division with a win, just beating the Giants, or if Dallas loses, they win the NFC West. That's not all they're playing for here. So they haven't won the 1 seed yet. That honestly would surprise most people. I think there's a couple of teams that can still do it, but they can clinch the 1 seed if they win. So a big game for the Eagles. A lot of people would assume this late in the season, maybe you're resting some players. That's not going to happen here. They're going to try to win. Jalen Hurts, I've heard, is healthy or healthier. Seems like he's trending to play. They're going to try to win this game, and it'll just be all that easier for them to get the 1 seed as long as Dallas and or San Francisco loses. If they both lose, then the Eagles don't even have to win. They're the 1 seed. The Niners, my guys, they will clinch the 1 seed if they win and Philadelphia loses. It's that simple. They will otherwise be the 2 seed, except for the Cowboys could pass them. So they'll be in the top 3 seeds. They're going to have, on paper, what should be a favorable matchup first round of the playoffs. They'll play a playoff game at home. That all should happen. Next up, the Cowboys. They'll clinch the NFC East division. They will pass Philadelphia, which sounds crazy the way Philadelphia has been playing this year. They'll pass Philadelphia if they win and Philly loses. They'll clinch the East, and they can clinch the 1 seed if they win, Philly loses, and San Francisco loses too. So the tiebreaker would be going San Francisco's favor if they end up tied with San Francisco record-wise. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Moving on now, Seattle Seahawks. Yeah, don't know exactly why they're next up on this, because that's not in the playoff order right now. But they'll clinch a playoff berth if they win and Green Bay loses. So that's the way that they get in. They're a bubble team right now. They need Green Bay to lose and they need to win. If they lose, I believe Green Bay is in. The Lions, they need even more to happen. They need to win. They need Seattle to lose. I guess they would beat Green. They have the tiebreaker over Green Bay. Maybe no. There's another spot. There's still another spot. So Green Bay, if they win, they're in. Green Bay's in the
You
win
said all that wrong.
to
You
win it.
switched the Lions and the Packers like entrance. So
Right.
re-say the Lions and the Packers because that whole thing was confusing.
My apologies. The Lions, if
Yeah.
they are playing the Packers, so that makes it easier. There
Yeah.
will be a game against the Lions and the Packers. If Detroit wins, then we know the Packers lose. So that clears things up a little bit. They will have a better record than the Packers. They would also need Seattle to lose, and they're in. The Lions would be in. Green Bay, they just need to win, and they're in. And again, Seattle, they need to win, and they need Green Bay to lose. So they're Detroit Lions fans this week. That's what we're looking at there mostly. John, I don't think we have time to do them, but I'm going to go ahead and show you this. I did figure out our percentages over the season. Like you said, we did not pick every week. Looks like we picked weeks. We didn't start doing it until week 3. We didn't realize that would be a good segment weekly, I guess. A little bit on me, maybe there. We did do week 4, week 5, week 6, week 7, week 8. We had a nice little run, fell off a little bit. Week 12, week 13, week 15. And I have this one prepared for week 18, but we didn't get there. Maybe we'll do it off camera before the game start. Maybe we'll give the people an update. Maybe we still have a chance to switch things up a little bit. But you were correct. Of the season-long guys, you have the best winning percentage and second highest in total wins, because I think you missed one episode that I did not. So,
yep.
I'll say I'm the total.
But it looks like our one-time guest judge. Yeah, you are the total wins champion. Congratulations.
And Q, who talked
one-time guest judge.
Let's just say, just to be politically correct here on the YouTube algorithm, Q talked a mess. You know what I'm saying? He talked a lot of shit. Screw the algorithm. Q fell below the 60% mark. He was hot early, if you remember. Didn't quite break that 60. So it was that tie that did it to him. We all had that one. So I mean, obviously, you can't win or lose on a tie. The only one who didn't end up with a tie is Munt. Like you said, made one episode. I just want to point out that week that he showed up, I also went 12 and 4. I just want.
I was gonna say, will you pull up that week?
Yeah, that would be week.
That was that week. 15. There it is.
Yep.
Yeah. How did we all do?
12 and 4.
I went 10 and 5. You went 12 and 4. We all. So
that's well actually that just goes to show how much you were crushing it ahead of that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I did well that week too. It's just not quite as well.
Right. I mean, we didn't.
Wait, how did I pick one less game that week?
That's an interesting story.
Oh, Ravens. There's a 0 in the Ravens column there.
Oh, that should be here. Sorry.
Yep. So I went 10 and 6. Yeah, which is still a fine week, but like, yeah, you guys did really well. So that was just an easier week to pick that he showed up.
I will say this in general, as a show, we got much. I mean, and this is not like supernatural. We got much better throughout the year. You learn more about the teams. It becomes a lot easier to pick the games. So,
and you're not picking odds either. We're not picking them to cover the spread, which makes it easier too.
So I'm going to go ahead and I will say Munt, great job. Highest winning percentage at everybody on the show. I'm going to give the crown to you on this one, though, John. Like I said, Munt, great job. But to jump in late in the season, not his fault. We're just appreciative he could jump on and join us. He'll probably be back on an episode or two at some point. But just wanted to give you your flowers there, John. Great picking.
Thank you.
I really wanted it for myself. Let's hit a couple of these.
I mean, total wins crown definitely matters. Total wins crown is impressive.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate you saying that. I would have said the same thing had it been you did. Okay, it looks like we don't have any actually new comments, so I'll just go ahead and we're gonna get on out of here because your boy's got a cornhole tournament to get to. Hey, if you're watching this far into the episode, let me know by dropping a comment on the actual video, not in the chat. I want to know if you play cornhole. That'll be like some extreme like internal language for the people who only watch this far into the video. So let's add some cornhole comments to this video. I want to know who plays. But also, if you've watched this far into the video, I hope you enjoyed yourself. And if you did enjoy yourself, please hit the like button. That would be the way to signify to us that you liked it. Also, you know, if you feel like you want to come back and join us some other time, hit the subscribe button, because then you're going to start seeing a ton of our videos in your feed, or at least when they come out. You know, YouTube's pretty good about overloading people with stuff. But if you really want to get in here like some of our guys today and join in on the comments during our live shows, click the bell icon, because that's going to give you notifications every time we go live. And you're going to be able to jump in here, and on a slow day, we'll put just about any comment up on the screen. Not that they weren't all great comments today, guys. Appreciate them. Keep them coming. But hopefully we get to the point one day where there's too many to put up there. We'll have to cherry pick the good ones. So let's make it a competitive live chat, more lively. We always want to see that. Guys, for myself and John over here, whichever way he is over there, this has been Triple Cross. Triple Cross Podcast. We're going to see you next time. And until then, you keep it real.